Sir, it's great to be here. I've actually heard great things about you, so finally good to meet you in person. Interestingly, I usually do these interviews remote, right? And I think one of your teammates assumed that we are doing in the studio, right? And I had a chance to check out both the studios, this one that we are currently interviewing in and the other studio, right? It's fascinating in terms of what you all have done with creating such an amazing experience for all these content. I would love to hear your thoughts first on why this decision was made to build a studio like this in-house, and then we can sort of go into the discussion later.
That sounds great. Well, thanks so much for having me, Kishore. It's so nice to be on the show and to see you in person. So we are here in one of our studio spaces in Los Angeles, and for us as at Capital Group, as we think about the role of video content and needing and wanting to produce even more timely topical content for the advisors that we serve through our marketing efforts, having the flexibility to do it in-house and to have a studio space like this was really important to us. So we've actually built a number of spaces both here in LA as well as our office in London, so that we have that flexibility and we can have portfolio managers in the studio for 20 minutes to do an interview or a webinar, and then folks can resume their work day and not need to leave the building. So just the convenience of it has been a huge benefit for us.
And this has been very recent, right? In the last couple of years, if I'm correct.
The last few years, and the space that we're in today actually was sort of a lounge conference room about 6 months ago.
Okay.
So this space is brand new, just having something more casual and informal that we can use in addition to our more formal webinar space.
That's great. So before we go into a discussion, one thing that I observed was the firm started in 1931, right? So you all are coming on a 100-year anniversary soon, and not many firms survive that level of historical timeline, right? Curious to understand what is different about the firm that has helped it survive and thrive in multiple technological advancements and changes. Just want to hear your thoughts before we sort of go into the discussion.
It's a great question, and I think one of the things that's so exciting about being a marketer at Capital Group right now is that we're thinking a lot about that 100-year anniversary that's coming up, and where do we want to be as marketers in 2031, which will be our 100-year anniversary. And it has changed so much. I've been here for about a tenth of the life of the firm. I just had my 10-year anniversary, so there's something exciting too about about thinking about what the next few years, 10 years, the next 100 years will hold. I think one of the reasons that the firm is still so successful is just the willingness to adapt, and it's very much part of our culture. That sort of culture of adaptation and being willing to modify our approach if needed, and to bring new products to market that we know our advisors are looking for. But all of that adaptation, I think, is also done with our mission in mind. And so our mission is to improve people's lives through successful investing. And I've never been at a company that talked more about their mission in meetings and in kind of day-to-day interactions. And I think that is our true north has been hugely helpful. And I think that allows a company to adapt and change and be flexible and agile, but still do it with that North Star in mind.
That's great. Thank you for explaining that. So I've sort of divided the whole interview into multiple segments, right? And my first sort of section was morely about advisors and how that landscape has changed. And I think you work a lot with advisors, right, Sarah? So would love to hear your thoughts on what has changed in the last 10 years in terms of what trends you're seeing from an advisor landscape, right? A couple of things that I've read was, average age of an advisor is 62, and a lot of them are retiring very soon, right? We have a lot of Gen Zs and millennials coming to consume content digitally and not in the previous ways of interactions. Would love to hear your thoughts on what is happening in the advisor landscape and what trends you're seeing in the last 10 years.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So most of our marketing is B2B marketing. Yes. The majority of it is communication that we're sharing with financial advisors. And as we look at the financial advisor landscape in the US, the latest data I looked at last week, the average age is 49. So it's a little bit younger.
Okay.
But the dynamics of impending retirements are definitely something that we think quite a bit about. The numbers I looked at showed that over 100,000 advisors are expected to retire in the next 10 years.
Okay.
So if you think about that, that's a massive percentage of advisors in the US. Only about a quarter of them have a succession plan. So that's a pretty notable number, that 3/4 of advisors that are retiring in the next 10 years don't have a plan for what's going to happen to their practice and how they're going to build a succession plan. So as Capital Group, one of the things that we really want to provide to advisors is support throughout the life of their practice. And so that for us looks like new advisor training and education through some of our kind of fundamentals training. When you're newer in your career, that's really important to kind of shore that up. All the way through to helping advisors think about succession plans and the different options that they might have, and how to really put a plan in place and document what that might look like. So for us, that's a big shift. It means that there'll be significant assets in motion through that shift. And so as we think about advisors that we have deep relationships with today, who may be in that group that is retiring soon, how do we think about building those relationships with the successors to their practices?
And also, I think one point that you mentioned some time back, I remember, was the demands on the advisors are increasing, but their time is not.
Yes.
Right? And I would love to explain that statement from you, and then sort of hear what Capital Group is doing to support that.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting. I think if you chat with financial advisors, one of the things that they'll share in terms of their biggest challenge is time. Right? It's having time to do prospecting and find new business. It's time to have like deep engagements with their clients and the client service they want to provide. And the demands on them have never been higher, whether it's regulatory demands, whether it's really thinking about how their clients see them.
And why is that, Sarah? Why is the demands increase? Is it because of the regulatory changes you mentioned, or?
I think it's both. I think it's regulation, and I also think it's what their clients are looking for them to be. So what we see is an increase in a client saying they want their advisor to be a life coach. They want them to be able to counsel them through a number of different questions that may be beyond just what's in their portfolio. And one of the things that we think a lot about here at Capital Group, as we think about the pressures on advisors, is how do we stand beside them? How do we help them with some of those time management pressures? And one of the ways that we do that is through our product offerings. And I'll give you one specific example. We offer model portfolios where an advisor can leverage a portfolio with Capital Group as the strategist, where Capital Group provides the portfolio construction support, and then the advisor is able to apply that portfolio, use that portfolio with clients, and then that takes some of that burden off of them from a time management standpoint.
Very interesting, very interesting. And the other sort of, we spoke about advisors, right? The other sort of thing I hear a lot about is how wholesalers are finding it hard to actually meet advisors, right? And advisors might say, you know what, let's sort of postpone the meeting, or let's engage digitally, et cetera, right? Would love to hear your thoughts on that first, if it's true, right? And also understand what you all are doing to support wholesalers to engage with advisors a lot more easily.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. And I think those dynamics are true, and it's probably beyond our industry. Just the sort of in-person,
that's a great point.
Right? Those sort of in-person engagement dynamics. One of the things that we're looking at in marketing and that we're focused on right now is how do we support our sales force and deliver fit for purpose content. And what I mean by that is, if we're sitting across the desk from each other, I may be able to leverage materials that are on paper, and we can go through brochures together and things like that. If we're on the phone or we're on a WebEx, that's going to feel very different, that type of engagement. And it might be a 5-minute phone call and not a 30-minute kind of office visit. So we're spending a lot of time developing dynamic virtual content. So if I'm on the phone with you for 30 minutes or for 5 minutes and I pull up a piece of content, how do can I use that content in a way that's dynamic and engaging and really maximizes that digital delivery, and understanding that those engagements need to feel different and our marketing needs to support them in different ways. So that's a big area of focus for us as we think about our sales force who are in the field and might be spending time in advisors' offices, and then our site sales team who are based in some of our offices and who are engaging remotely.
Fantastic, awesome. So one interesting fact is that it looks like your CEO is starting a series, right, on his own to bring more thought leadership content, right? And from an outside-in perspective, that was very fascinating to me because not many CEOs actually put out a lot of interesting content that makes sense for their audience, right? I would love to hear from you directly in terms of what that initiative was and how that came into fruition. Right?
Yeah. Thanks for asking about that. So we have a thought leadership platform called Capital Ideas, and we use that platform to bring investment content, topical content, market volatility updates to our financial advisors and other financial intermediaries. And we do that through a number of different platforms. We have a weekly newsletter that is shared with over 100,000 subscribers. We have weekly podcasts. We have a monthly webinar series, and we deliver that content in a number of different formats. One of the things that we always strive to do is to really give access to financial advisors, to our investment professionals. And we think that it's the best way to describe what we do, to describe our unique investment process called the capital system, and to really bring it to life through stories. And so many of our investment professionals have been at Capital for decades and have tremendous relationships and can really bring to life those stories. And we were thrilled when Mike Gitlin was eager to host and to invite investment professionals to join him once a month to talk about their investment journey. And so he covers a number of different topics, everything from how they got their start in investing, what informs their process, their mentors, and he talks through successes and failures and kind of what they've learned along the way. The first episode is launching on February 22nd, so it'll be a monthly series within our Capital Ideas thought leadership platform. So
That's
we're
fantastic.
very excited about that.
So interesting. Usually when this happens, right? Typically the CEO will ask the head of marketing or the head of distribution, like, can you do this series, right? Instead of volunteering his time to do it. Any thoughts from you on like why is he so interested to do it himself and dedicate his time? Like what was like the discussion that happened between you and him in terms of how this should come to life?
Yeah, I think it's really about, he has a lot of passion for bringing forward our unique investment process and ensuring that our current clients have a deep understanding and have the same experience that he's had engaging with our investment professionals, that they get to be sort of a fly on the wall of our investment process. And he's also quite passionate to ensure that the next generation of financial advisors really deeply understands who Capital is. And the way that we've structured these conversations, we think it's a terrific avenue to do that. And we think the video podcast format is a great format to do it, because like this, we can spend a little bit more time together and get into some of that depth.
No, very, very exciting, because like I said, I've not seen many CEOs do it, and it's exciting for the marketing team as well, I'm sure, right?
Yes.
That a CEO is taking an initiative to do it himself and getting the troops rallied across. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
So one question, I think you sort of mentioned before, the format of this content, right? And it feels like with this studio and the other studio, you all are investing a lot more into video and audio as a form of content. Is that the plan to double down this year on video, audio compared to written content? And why is that? Like what sort of is the reason for the shift?
Absolutely. So for us, audio and video content is hugely important and is a growing percentage of our content offering. And it's really because we want to meet advisors where they are, and we want to serve up our content in the way, then the format that they want to consume it. So if you're a financial advisor driving to work in the morning and you spend that half an hour on your favorite podcast platform, we want to be there. If you're watching a YouTube video during a lunch break and trying to learn about an investment concept or just learn more about a company and their views on a specific issue, we want to be there in that environment. So it's really trying to match that. And the latest data that we've been looking at about social media in particular, over 40% of advisors plan on spending a significantly more time on social media to connect with their clients, to share content with their clients, to use it as both a prospecting tool as well as an engine to connect. And so as we think about social media, the role of video there is so important, just in terms of maximizing kind of stopping power and engagement. Absolutely.
That's awesome. So on this point, do you all discuss which format of content works across platforms? For example, a long form video recording like this might not work well in a social media where it's all about snackable bite-sized content. Is that like the approach that you all discuss and figure out this channel should have this type of content?
Absolutely, and in some cases, content can be used in different ways and repackaged in different formats. But it really requires that upfront planning. So if we're doing a longer form video, we'll have conversations with our team at the beginning to say, do we think this will turn into shorter videos? How are we thinking about how we'll use this on YouTube? Do we think about social and having different kind of shorter edits for social? So we'll plan a lot of that at the beginning. And then there are certain instances where we'll design something just to be long form or just to be short form.
Like in-depth conversations.
Exactly.
Right. And the subsequent question is, how do events play a role in this? Because I'm sure you all do both digital events, like webinars, webcasts, and a lot of video, audio content, but also in-person events to make sure that the team has face-to-face time with advisors. What's the strategy behind events, and how do you balance both this year?
Yeah, it's a great question, and events are a big part of our engagement, and a great opportunity to spend more concentrated time with our audience and our clients. And so, as we think about events, it might be an event that we host here, and we have financial advisors come into our offices and have time to spend with them and provide more depth into what we're working on at Capital Group and our priorities, and go into topics that we know are really important to them. Or we might meet advisors at an event that they're already attending, in which case we might have a speaker on a specific topic, and then we get to spend time kind of mingling with advisors in that environment. And it's nice, we get a chance to see them in person, we get a chance to kind of hear questions and what's on their mind. The webinar platform has been huge for us. During the pandemic, we pivoted to exclusively digital events. We've gone back to a hybrid now. And one of the things that we learned was that we could deliver really impactful virtual events. We could reach many, many more advisors. And that advisors saw great value in that because they could easily fit it into their schedule. They could attend an event for an hour and kind of get back to their clients.
Because they're also traveling constantly.
Exactly.
Right? And any trends you are seeing in the in-person events or digital events? Because one thing I hear, and I don't have a lot of facts to validate that, is these days folks want these intimate events and don't want to go to large conferences where they feel lost and want to have those sort of in-depth conversations. Is that what you're seeing in general? Or
there certainly is, I think, a premium on experience. So what is the experience you're having? And one of the great things about our events team here is that they're very much experience-led in how they design our events and how we think about how Capital Group shows up at those events. So I'll give a couple examples. We recently launched exchange-traded funds, so ETFs, at Capital, which was a big launch for us 2 years ago. And the team has built an event program around bell ringings at the New York Stock Exchange. So where we invited advisors to join us for the bell ringing ceremony, we hosted an event at the Stock Exchange, and so that was a terrific experience too
because
for
not
advisors.
Many folks have an opportunity to go to NASDAQ and ring the bell.
So how do you provide that access and build an event around that activity? And then some of it, I think, is just how you stand out from the crowd at these events. So we had we were participating in an event that was down here near the beach in Southern California, and we had Capital Group branded surfboards, and we gave out sunscreen, things like that felt different, right? Felt different for us than maybe the typical highlighter or things like that you get at a number of these like financial services events.
So the experience seems like a very, very important part of how you guys design these events. Makes sense. And sort of final question in this section is generative AI, right? It's been a big sort of focus for a lot of marketing teams. I think last year, it was more around discussions about what AI can do, and this year seems like actual use cases where you can deploy AI. I would love to hear your thoughts, Sarah, in terms of any high-level use cases that your team is thinking through. For example, one area where our customers are excited about is using AI to clip videos into short-form clips, et cetera, et cetera. So, would love to hear your thoughts in terms of what areas you are seeing some applications.
Yeah, I mean, I may be biased because I'm a marketer, but I think that the application of generative AI for marketing is going to be extremely powerful as we move forward. And the way I think about it is it gives our teams the opportunity to gain scale.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a replacement for our talented marketing team, but I think, my gosh, having that tool in your tool set and being able to leverage that so that our marketers can work on the highest value content and can outsource to AI the things that aren't as high value. So a few of the areas we're looking at, the first is translation. And we run a global marketing team. So we have around 400 marketing associates that are in countries around the world. And we produce content for financial intermediaries around the world as well. And our marketing content needs to be translated into the language of their local business. And so, as you might imagine, we spend a lot of time on translation. The ability for AI to really serve as a tool in translation is going to be hugely impactful. The other area that we're looking at is promotional content. So like you were talking about creating shorter clips of content. Once the content is created by our teams, we think there's an opportunity for AI to help us think about how do you turn something into a social post, how do you turn it into a short web article, things like that, where the core content is developed by our team and then we leverage AI to turn it into promotional content.
The translation also is a very interesting use case I didn't think about actually. Now you say it does make sense for a global brand like Capital Group with multiple offices. You need to translate all the content with some human involved. Now AI can assist that person to do it much faster.
Right, and that's the way we're seeing it. It's an assistant, right? It's not a replacement, but it's capacity augmentation.
Correct. That's a great point. And on this point about global brand, so I think we sort of discussed briefly, during the prep call as to how difficult it is to create a global brand that can speak locally across different regions. And you said it is one of the important challenges you are also tackling, right? Sort of curious to know about what makes it so challenging. Obviously, it's very, very different across regions. And what are you asking your teams to keep in mind while designing campaigns and stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one we're spending a lot of time thinking about as we work to build our brand globally. And one of the things that we've done is really thought deeply about what is that brand foundation? What are the sort of bedrock principles that would hold anywhere? And it includes brand guidelines. Right. It might be your kind of look and feel and how you think about the graphic elements, how you use photography, right? All of those visual cues. And ultimately, what are the main points that you're trying to bring forward to differentiate the organization? And then how do you empower local teams to bring that to life in a way that is culturally relevant and that recognizes the market dynamics that they face. Our challenges in markets where we've been operating like the United States for close to 100 years now, they're different than markets where where our business isn't as developed and where we're still very much introducing ourselves to our audiences.
That's great. Awesome. So I think the next sort of topic, which actually a lot of folks ask me to ask you this, is about the constraints of legal and compliance in an industry like financial services, right? I would love to first have you explain to the audience folks what are some of those constraints, because folks working in the software industry might not understand what those constraints are. And then you can go double click on that and ask them the next question.
Yeah, I love this question. So one of the things that maybe I'll start with is at Capital Group, we very much see ourselves as having a culture of compliance. Compliance is extremely important to us, and it's not only important because it's the law and we need to comply with regulations. It's important because our clients and the investors that they serve trust us to bring accurate information, and so that compliance piece is very much rooted in that, and we want to be a trusted source for them of information, and so we take that job very, very seriously. The example I'll give, maybe to bring this to life, is we in financial services, you can't make a promissory claim. So I can't tell you that if you purchase this product or make this investment, that it is going to deliver certain returns over a period of time. So you might have seen or heard in disclaimer language, past results are not predictive, of future returns.
I've seen in your LinkedIn post as well, you're always making sure that is right.
And so that's maybe this probably one of the simpler examples of some of the things that that we would avoid, of course. And one of the things that we have found in terms of working with our legal and compliance partners here at Capital Group is we very much see them as part of our team. And they are literally at the table with us when we're working on new marketing programs, when we might be exploring a new channel. So for instance, our video podcast series that we're launching shortly, I had my legal partner literally sitting next to me as we were watching the taping of the show, just so that we could say, okay, are there areas that we need to be mindful of? Is there guidance we need to provide the guests in these sort of longer form interviews? And having their partnership in the early stages, I think is critical.
And I'm sure, early members of the marketing team might think, or even if you ask me to work in your team and I'll be so frustrated. Oh my God, I want to just get the campaign out so quickly, and you have to consult the legal team now and wait for 5 days of approval. How do you sort of advise the teams to think about this and sort of work with them, like you said, collaboratively to move fast, right?
And I think it's all about that early engagement. I think with early engagement, we can move faster together. I think that the times that I've seen things get slowed down, it's when something's developed and that there hasn't been that early engagement. So that's key, I think.
That's great, awesome. So I think I know I've got a lot of insight in terms of the work you're doing at Capital Group and also how you guys are thinking about marketing. I want to sort of dive into your career in general, right? I think you've had an interesting career. You spent 10 years in Nestle roughly, right? It's a B2C company, completely different from what you're doing right now, right? And you've sort of rose in the ranks very quickly to become a co-head of global marketing at Capital Group. If you have to go back, right, and sort of give advice to yourself, right, what would you sort of give as an advice to someone in their younger self?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the things as I reflect back is my advice would be not to be afraid to take risks in your role and to raise your hand and say, this opportunity sounds interesting. I don't have all the answers. I don't know exactly what it's going to be like, but I'm willing to kind of jump in with both feet and try it out. And not to be too caught up by sort of functional boundaries. And I say that because At Nestle, I worked in shopper marketing, which at the time was in our sales organization. So I left marketing, joined sales, and then came back to marketing. And I did the same here at Capital Group. I joined as a marketer. I spent some time in sales on our national accounts team, and then came back to our marketing organization. And I just think those role boundaries and those functional boundaries, I think, are getting more and more blurred. I think ultimately it's about having a strong commercial mindset and a commercial team, and I think we get better marketers from having folks have those experiences and bringing back what they learned to the rest of the team and kind of infusing that knowledge. And it can be scary. It can be scary to say, I'm going to step away from my function or my role and I'm going to try something different. But I think ultimately that's how we grow, by having those new experiences.
That's an easy question for you then. I was thinking about to ask this question to you is when I discuss with my friends who are in this space, right, of asset management and investment banks and stuff, there is a particular stereotype of people who become successful in this industry, right, and not many women have come up in general. Like, it feels like the diversity is fairly low across these industries, right? And any thoughts on what you are advising your team to think about? How do they make themselves more visible in the organization, especially women? I would love to hear your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a topic I'm very passionate about, and feel very fortunate to work at Capital Group, where we have a big focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and some terrific, we call them capital communities, but employee resource groups. And I've been pretty deeply involved in our women's group here. I'll share maybe a couple thoughts on the industry, and then kind of what my kind of thoughts are about kind of women in the industry. So the financial advisor population in the U.S. at least is about 80% men, a little bit north of that. But the clients they serve are not. So I think that we as an industry have an important job to do to think about how we serve men and women, how we serve all investors, how we think about engaging and connecting with those clients. And so one of the things that we're focused on is how do we help the next generation of advisors? How do we go upstream to ensure that if you're coming out of a university, that maybe you see financial advising as a career that you're interested in, and there are other women advisors for a woman, right, contemplating that as a career, that you can see yourself in that career and in that profession. And so that's something that we're very interested and involved in. And then as far as kind of visibility in the office, I would say we're very focused here on how we think about mentorship and how we help folks kind of think really deliberately about their career path. And it's maybe back a little bit to the advice about kind of functional role changes. I always encourage my team too to kind of raise your hand for things and jump in for things, even if you think that maybe you don't have every single required skill.
Yeah. Self-doubt, overcome the self-doubt.
Exactly. Kind of you're probably closer than you think, right? and so how do we create an environment where folks feel like they can stretch and continue to learn.
But the stat was very interesting. I didn't realize that 80% of FAs are men, and now I think about it, my wife is a lot more sensible when it comes to money, right? So there should be a lot more people who should do this career. So one question I would love to have your transparent take, Sarah, is what keeps you up at night, right? As a marketing leader this year, what sort of worries you constantly?
It's an interesting question, and I have to say I was kind of racking my brains to think about what is that thing that keeps me up at night, and I will say I'm married with 2 kids and a dog, and so I'm exhausted at the end of the day. So there's not a lot that keeps me up at night. But I think the reason that is that I find it hard to kind of pinpoint something that I'm really concerned about is a little bit back to our marketing leadership model. So you had mentioned global marketing and how we run global marketing here at Capital Group. I have two partners in leading our marketing organization, Kevin Hughes and James Cardew. And each of us has responsibility for a line of business and then an enterprise area that serves all of our marketing team. And because of that three-part leadership team, I'm able to really lean in on the things where I have expertise, and I'm able to lean on them for areas where they have expertise. And I think that complementary and really collaborative leadership team means that I have this great sounding board kind of built into our structure. And it's very much aligned with our culture here at Capital Group, that sort of collegial, collaborative culture. And so I think that's the reason why. I think it's because of that structure, and our team is phenomenal. And I have tremendous confidence and in their ability to continue to innovate, and they push us to try new things all the time. And I think if anything was a concern to me, it's how do we ensure that we keep creating an environment that lets the team continue to thrive.
Awesome. And what's one thing that you're looking forward to in 2024?
So we talked a little bit about AI. I'm very excited about that. I think we're asking our teams to really kind of roll up their sleeves and start engaging with the technology, so that eventually can be something that is a tool that we all leverage.
On the point, so you would have done your budgeting last year, right? And the space is moving so fast that new tools might pop up, new technology might pop up. How should your teams think about AI? And let's say if they like a tool that can sort of reduce their time load or workload, is there like a process that they should follow to get approval from you and your leadership team, or should they not think about it because they have not budgeted this in the last? Like, how should they think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we've asked our team to bring forward anything. So we had some of our designers not too long ago brought forward some interesting tools that they were seeing that they thought could help accelerate our design process and remove some kind of more manual, kind of busy work from their day-to-day. So we're always open to hearing those ideas. And I would say that those that are most compelling, we certainly consider.
Awesome. One last question, Sarah, before we sort of wrap this up. I've been doing these interviews for a long time, right? And I think this is the first time I'm doing one with in the asset management space, etc. I don't see a lot of people sort of voicing their thoughts and ideas on social media about what they're doing in marketing and really just building their own brand, right? I think your CEO is obviously exceptional in the fact that he's trying to build a brand for the community and the company, but not many people in the industry I've seen, right, voice their ideas and thoughts compared to what I've seen in the technology or software space, right? And I was thinking about it. Is it because of the fact that it's highly regulated that people are a little bit more not used to sort of sharing their thoughts on social? Like, what is sort of your perspective on that? And do you agree with that? If not, I might be completely wrong.
It's a really insightful question, and I'll just speak from my point of view in terms of Capital Group. I'm very focused on building the Capital Group brand.
Right.
I'm less focused on building my own personal my own personal brand. And part of that, I think, is our culture, I think, is a little bit more more humble, and we're more focused on kind of bringing the value that Capital Group has to bear for our audience. I think some of it might be regulation, and I think some of it is that within a B2B space, a lot of our marketing content goes directly to a financial advisor, and if our targeting is working, then you might not see it because it's going directly to those audiences. So I think some of that is there. But the other thing that I'll share is I've recently been spending a little bit of time with other CMOs across asset management, the asset management industry, and while we certainly can't kind of connect and discuss all topics, there are some that we can, and I've found that to be tremendously valuable. So one example might be how do we think AI is going to influence the marketer of the future when it comes to skills and talent and recruiting, and how do we need to be thinking about sort of our talent pipeline in the future, and what kind of skills are we going to need to bring on board to take advantage of this this exciting technology. And I would encourage folks kind of across industries to seek out your peers, because there are always those areas where, kind of within the boundaries, legally of course, of what you can and can't discuss, I think finding someone who does your job somewhere else can be just really illuminating.
That's awesome. So it's been a privilege, and it's also been a privilege to be in a historical institution like Capital Group, and I just also want to appreciate the hospitality you and your team have showed me and my friends over here. So thank you for doing this. Hopefully it's the start of many, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
Of course.